Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. Before we bring on tonight's guest, I want to address a few things with you. First of all, I apologize for there not being a show last Friday night. Unfortunately, I had laryngitis and lost my voice. I'm still having trouble with my voice actually and probably shouldn't have done tonight's show, but it's not a long interview, so hopefully my voice won't start going out on me again. Another thing I want to address with you is Dogman Encounters t-shirts and sweatshirts with a new design are available now. If you go to dogmanencounters.com/store, you'll see links you can click on to be taken to the new t-shirt store. The new store has better prices and a lot more color options than the old store had. It even has new size options too, ranging from youth small all the way up to adult 5XL. The last thing I want to talk about is the problem some of you seem to be having finding new episodes of the show on YouTube. There's been a rash of imposters lately who have been creating videos on YouTube and trying to make them look like my shows. There's an easy way for you to make sure that doesn't happen to you. If you look at the lower right-hand corner of your screen when you're watching one of my shows on YouTube, you'll see a white and red icon. If you click on that icon, you'll be taken to the show's YouTube homepage. Once you're on the homepage, if you look on the right side of your screen, a little more than halfway up on the right, you'll see a red subscribe button. If you click on it, you'll automatically be notified instantly whenever a new episode of the show is uploaded. That way you won't have to deal with the imposters anymore. Alright, let's not waste any more time. Let's bring on tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is Vanessa. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for being here. Vanessa, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Well, I'm 48 years old. I live in Kalkaska, Michigan. I have a 13-year-old daughter. I'm happily married. I am a stay-at-home mom who homeschools her daughter, and I have a lot of joy in that.
From talking with you in the pre-interview, it sounds like you do live a great life. It's just a shame you had to have that encounter that we're going to talk about.
I'm good with it.
Well, that's definitely good news. That's a lot better than most eyewitnesses can say, but of course we're going to get into that in just a bit. You say nature has always been at the center of your sense of peace. Please expand on that for us.
Well, growing up, I was always out in the woods, in the trails. Going out and walking in the woods fills me with inner peace. I feel closer to nature, more about who I am, I would say.
From the things that you shared with me in the pre about what you like to do in the woods and how you view things in the woods, I'm really impressed with your outlook. It's too bad more people didn't look at things that way.
Well, thank you. I mean, nature is as nature is, and you got to take the good and the bad. But to rebel against it only darkens your own heart. Me, I see it as if nature happens, and you have to accept what happens.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Growing up, did you have an interest in werewolves and things like that go bump in the night?
Not really. A lot of that was just myths, things that parents did to scare their kids to keep them at home and out of trouble. Me, I always loved the woods, but never gave much thought to a werewolf or anything like that.
Do you know of any Sasquatch sightings that have happened in your area?
Not Sasquatch. As a matter of fact, the rumor was that, there was dogmen around. It started out as a joke on a radio station. But like I said, it was all in passing. There was nothing behind it.
Or so you thought.
Exactly.
Since you'd already heard about the Michigan Dogman, was it easy to put two and two together when you had your encounter that night, or did it take some time before you figured out what it was you had seen?
What I saw, and it wasn't until after it was done that I actually realized that I had seen a dogman.
Once you realized what it was that you had seen that night, what was your response? Did it turn your world upside down, or did you take it in stride for the most part? How did you respond to that?
I think I automatically just went into shock. I can't say that I was terrified. I wasn't. But I was very much into shock to see something that I had always thought of as a myth real before my eyes.
Yeah, that's about as big of a shock as you can get. You told me in the pre-interview that strange things have been happening in your area. What kinds of strange things were you talking about?
Well, for years there was accounts of people and livestock being injured and hurt. Not so much killed, but just injured and hurt. And that's all over the place up here in my area, from Bel Air to Wexford County, which are totally different places. In northern Michigan, that's about 3-4 counties altogether encompassed that these reports and stories have come from. I don't really know the people that made the statements, but I've heard them pass from people to people, town to town. Many different reports, though, over the years.
Well, you're definitely in the right area for something like that to happen, so I guess we'll never know. Before you tell us about your encounter, please tell us about the place where it happened.
Well, it happened on my own property, right behind my house. As you pull into my driveway, it's kind of a steep downgrade to pull into my driveway. And if you look off to the right, there'll be some trees. And once you get past the trees, there'll be an opening there where some people will park cars or whatnot. It's a trail that leads to the house next door. As you keep looking around, you'll see my small shed, and right in between my small shed and my house is about a 5-6 foot opening, and then if you keep going around, it eventually circles back to the drive-in where you pull in. It's not a real big area, but big enough to look around.
And you said you live on 40 acres, didn't you?
Yeah, I live on 40 acres. I have a pond in the front yard, and if you go to the backyard, there'll be a small private man-made pond. It's about the size of a football field, just about. And I know a lot of the animals in the area come to these ponds to drink water and such. We had fish in the small man-made pond. That my fish have been decreasing over the years, but I think that's due to nature, bears coming in, coyotes, whatever. They take their fill.
Sounds like a nice place.
It is a beautiful area. One couldn't ask for better if you're into nature. It's one of the best places I've ever seen.
Yeah, it does sound really nice. All right, Vanessa, please tell us about your encounter. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Well, I went to town with a friend of mine, and upon coming back, he pulled in. It was raining pretty hard. And I jumped out of the car and closed the door. And normally I would have just run right into the house, but something stopped me right in the 5 to 6 foot open space between my shed and my house. Something just stopped me dead cold, and I didn't know what it was until for some reason, I looked off to my right, and I saw a dog just on the outside of the light. I saw a dog standing there, and I didn't think much of it. I'm like, why am I stopping? It's raining out here. And I just kept looking, and all of a sudden, this dog stood up. Straight up, as straight as a dog could stand. And in the reflection of the light, off of the lights that were pointing at my house in the rain, I saw this dog stand up, and it was gray with a twinge of brown. And it looked right at me. And when it turned back, I saw the snout of this dog standing up like a man. And it smiled. Not an evil smile. Not like something vicious or nothing like that. It just smiled. And it walked behind my house. And I'm standing there in the rain. And as soon as it disappeared, I realized that I was still standing out in the rain. So I went to walk into my house, and all of a sudden it just stopped again. And I don't know why, but I just said, I'm not afraid of you. And I walked back into my house. And when I walked in, my dogs were in my back window, and they were barking. They were growling. My dogs don't normally do that. And I knew right then and there that what I saw was something. It was, the only description for it was the Dogman. I got my dogs to settle down. And I don't know, I think an hour might have passed before I would even talk to anybody in my house. There was that much shock, that much awe at seeing something that I had always passed off to be just a myth. But it was real. No fear, but it was real.
Who was in your house when you saw it?
By that time, my friend had come in, and I had another friend over at the time. He was waiting for me to get back from the store. I couldn't talk to any of them. I couldn't talk to my daughter. I couldn't talk to anybody.
You said you couldn't tell anyone about your experience, but did they get a vibe off of you that something wasn't quite right?
I believe so. Like I said, about an hour later, my friend came in and asked me if I was all right, and I said, yeah. Just a little shocked, but yeah, I was okay physically. I'd never been afraid of anything out in nature. And like I said, I still at that point was not afraid. It was just shock and awe that I had saw what I saw. There was so much unbelieving evidence in front of me that I didn't bother changing. I was soaking wet, and I didn't bother changing. I just sat there and thought and thought and thought and thinking about what it was that I saw. And even still to this day, when I think about it, my brain is in still some kind of small bit of shock. Because every time I think about it, there's a little bit more there that I had missed not focusing on compared to what I had focused on, which was the muzzle of this dog that was standing straight up in front of me.
Did its head seem to be in proportion to the rest of its body?
Yes. It was in perfect proportion. It was like I was looking at a dog standing straight up. The only difference was it even standing straight up, it still had the bent curves in the leg that you could tell that it was a dog. There was no mistaking it. There's no way a human could stand that way with the legs bent in just the right places.
When it ran around the corner of your house, did it do that on 2 legs or drop back down onto 4s?
It was on 2 legs. It walked behind my house on 2 legs.
Yeah, that's going to be an image that's going to be really hard to get out of your head. How close was it to you when it froze and smiled at you?
It was about, give or take, around 10 foot away from me.
Ooh, yeah, that's too close for comfort.
Like I said, the one thing that I managed to burn in my brain was the muzzle of this thing. The way it smiled at me. Like I said, it wasn't a vicious smile, but it was the smile on this face nonetheless. I don't think that it meant any viciousness toward me. If it had, I don't think it would have did what it did the way it did. The smile on this thing was like a happy dog smile. Like, ha ha, the joke's on you. It wasn't vicious.
Well, even if it was a happy dog smile or any other kind of smile, if you see a canine smiling at you, that's pretty creepy.
It was. Like I said, it still stands out in my thoughts.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Why'd you tell it you weren't afraid of it when it was staring at you?
I don't know. I don't know if it's because I had spent so much time out in nature getting my peace of heart and mind. Or if it just, I don't know, I was not afraid. The more I looked at it, there was no fear there. I was like, if I was calm, it was calm. I don't know what would have happened if I'd have been afraid or showed fear. Because there was none that night. I don't know if its reactions was based on my own. Not afraid, just, okay, you're there. But who's to say, who's to know, really?
Well, you responded in a really good way, so I think you can thank yourself for having such a benign outcome from that experience.
It was definitely something I will never forget, ever. And the way it responded and with the way I was, who's to say? I know I'm not a hunter, and I respect nature strongly. And I really can't explain it standing there in the rain. I just wasn't afraid. It didn't come at me or scare me with a snarl or anything like that. It just looked at me. And then it looked away. When it looked away, that's when it smiled. That's when I saw the smiles when it looked away. Looked forward. And then it proceeded forward behind the house. And I was not about to follow it. I have a firm respect for nature.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't do that. Did you see any response from it when you told it that you weren't afraid of it?
No, by that time it was behind the house somewhere. And I had walked up. I was about halfway to my door and my house, so a little bit past my door. And it was at the middle point that I stopped and told her, I'm not afraid of you. And I firmly meant it. Although I can't for the life of me say why I said it. I have no idea why I said it. It was just like I was on an automatic pilot. I don't know if it was the shock of seeing it, but it was almost like an all-automatic response.
Well, that's not surprising when you're standing there and you've got a dog man 10 feet away from you. You said your roommate's headlights lit it up. Did he see it too that night?
No, he didn't. As a matter of fact, when I eventually did tell him what I saw, he kind of poked a few jokes at me. You know, they weren't mean or nasty, but poked a few jokes at me about seeing the dog man. Because he didn't see it. It'd be kind of hard for him to have seen it, because I looked straight on at it, and his headlights ricocheted off my house and gave me just enough light where I could see it. I think that's what may have surprised it too. But the fact that I actually did see it. It was not directly in the light, but the light was right there. And I think it was the rain that helped me see it better than the straight on light. I do think that both of us, for all intent purposes, were shocked that we saw each other. That's the biggest feeling I got out of all of it, is that both of us were kind of shocked that we had actually saw each other.
Well, from the way you describe it, it sounds like it just might have been as shocked as you were to see it as it was to see you, so that could very well be. You mentioned your dogs. What kind of dogs do you have?
I have a German Shepherd Doberman mix, and he is very big. And I have a standard lab, and she's only considered a mid-sized dog. And both of them are very brave when it comes to their humans, but other than that, they're very, very gentle dogs. And to be honest, I've never seen the kind of aggression that they showed that night when I walked in. It was very aggressive, very unlike them. And even every now and again, to this very day, once in a great while, they'll get to where they're growling at nothing when they're either outside or they'll be inside and they'll be looking out that same window and their hackles will come up, and it's so unlike them because we've got so much nature around us, and they love people. People come and go, and they just absolutely love everybody. And for them to do that, to have that moment of, I am protecting you, and you can see it in the hackles up and in the growl, is very unnerving.
Yeah, that must be pretty strange considering how they used to act. Are you able to enjoy the woods at all now that you had that experience?
Well, to be honest, no, I've not been out to the woods since then. It bothers me a little bit that I lost that sense of peace that I've always had walking out in the woods. Well, as I said earlier, I'm not a hunter, so I don't carry any kind of weapons on me. If I should decide to go back out to the woods, it will be as who I was, and I know I will be again. It's just a matter of time of getting over that. But since it's happened, I haven't been out in the woods, not during the day, and really not at night. If I'm outside at all at night, I'll get this feeling sometimes, not always, but sometimes, like I'm being watched. And it gets kind of creepy at times. I don't stay outside at night, obviously. Not like I used to. I could sit out at night for hours and not be bothered, just enjoying everything. But not since then. I know nature's nature, and I have hopes that someday I'll be able to return to that comfortable, peaceful place that I had with nature. I just can't do it right now. I need time and work things out in my head as far as seeing the Dogman, and I've got to build a trust with that side of myself again to be able to believe that maybe even that's just a normal part of nature.
From talking with you, I bet you're going to be back out in those woods sooner than you thought you would, but of course that's all in your own good time. If you didn't feel fear when you had that experience, why are you having trouble going back into the woods now?
I think it's because I've never seen anything like that, a Dogman. I've never seen a dog standing up like that, walking the way it did. I think I just need time to adjust. Like I said, that it's a normal part of nature, and my brain has to really get down and believe that it's just a normal part of nature. It's the unknown, and being able to believe in everything that I have believed in about nature, and knowing that you got to respect it. You have to respect it, but yet if you respect it, it'll be good to you. I've seen bears about 50 feet away. I've actually chased off coyotes because I didn't want it on my property with no weapons, but just my own barking growl at them, and they went away. It's a respect thing. I have to learn how to respect this thing, and that I'm hoping that night it showed me a respect. That's the only way I'm going to get back to being who I was, is to be able to thoroughly work that through my mind.
Well, like I told you before, I think it's going to take some time, but I think you're going to be there sooner than what you think. Since that Dogman had you dead to rights that night but moved on without harming you, how dangerous or benign do you think they really are?
Well, I don't know. I think that goes from person to person, I guess. It's maybe the same aura of respect that we give off. As I said that night, I wasn't afraid, just in a lot of shock. And I think if you're not able to put yourself on an even keel, they could be more dangerous to you because you're afraid they're going to get afraid. Realistically speaking, that's how animals read us. Dogs, cats, wild animals. The more fear you have, the more fear they have, the more they're probably going to hurt. But honestly, I think if you can put your mind in a place where it's not afraid, maybe a shock, like, I don't know. Nature reacts to different people in different ways. And I think the more fear you have of it, the more it's going to have of you, and the more it's liable to react. That was the only thing that makes sense to me in my mind. Just like you said, he had me dead to rights that night. There's no explanation why he did what he did, other than the fact that for some unknown reason, I wasn't afraid.
Since the night of your encounter, have any strange gifts been left for you outside your house?
No, I can't say there has been. then again, I have a bunch of cats that like to leave me little gifts of mice. So, I mean, I don't know what exactly it would leave me, but I guess I get enough from my cats.
Huh. Yeah, it is funny how they do that. Speaking of the animals around your property, what's the coyote population like in your area?
The coyote population, it seems like they come and go. We have coyote, we have bobcat, we have bears, and if the bear is around, nothing else is around. You won't hear a coyote, you won't hear a dog, you won't hear cats, you won't hear nothing if the bear is around. If the bear is not in our general area, you will hear coyotes left and right on the ridge right across the street.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just a healthy ecosystem, so I'm not surprised you've got all the above.
It is. It is a very healthy ecosystem. Our coyotes every spring, you can hear them training the pups for hunting. And as soon as the bear wakes up and starts coming around, all that beautiful coyote song that you can hear disappears. If you don't know what's happening, it can be kind of scary. But if you get used to the different sounds that they make, the songs that the coyotes sing, and the noises that the bear makes, the smell, you can actually smell a bear from a good distance. That's how you know if there's one around. Generally, the smell in the absence of other animals. Coyotes, when they're hunting the packs, like I said, generally during the evening at dusk to just after dark, if they start howling a lot, you know that they've caught prey, and they're teaching the pups of that spring that it really is beautiful as far as nature goes here.
It sure sounds like it to me. You mentioned the ponds, but do you have any moving water sources near your property?
We have small springs that are connected to our ponds, but that's about the most movement of water we get. Most of it's just stationary. There's two other small lakes around here that, like I said, the animals can all get their water from. But a lot of times, like I said, we see a lot of them. We have turkeys and there's the coyotes and the bears and the bobcats. Just about any kind of nature you can think of. We just had owls come back to the area. So, I mean, they all live off of these ponds. And we're fortunate enough to have what we have here.
That sure does sound like a nice place. You've got me wanting to pick up stakes and move there. Huh.
Well, thought about moving away at one time, but even with what happened, this place still holds me because of the beauty of it. Even with that encounter with the Dogman, it's just not enough to drive me away.
Well, I'm glad you decided to stick it out.
Yeah, I've actually gotten to a point where some small part of me would like to see that Dogman again. In a respectable way. Don't get me wrong. If I could sit outside in a glass hut or a small hunting lodge, would be great.
Or inside an M1 Abrams tank.
No, actually, no, I don't need one of those either. Like I said, I'm not a hunter. The only way I shoot an animal is if I've got my camera in my hand. And like I said, for as big a shock as it was to see that, even thinking back, I'm not afraid, and I don't know how to put it, but some small way would kind of like to see it again. Just to, I don't know, maybe secondly verify that what I saw, I truly saw. I don't doubt what I saw, but I don't have 100% proof in my mind, you know, because what I saw was just a mist, but it was real.
Well, you know what they say, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. If it could be almost like that night again, I would do it in a heartbeat. Just for real verification. Just like I said, there was a lot of shock there. A lot of shock. And sometimes when you're in that much shock, you wonder, was that really real or not? You know it was, you saw it, but do you trust what you see? 100%. Like I said, if I could do it again, I would. I know it sounds strange, but I would. I really think I would.
No, I understand. There have been plenty of other eyewitnesses who have said the same thing. But you know how it is, too. You can't fool yourself. You know you saw what you saw that night. Whether you see one again or not, you know that you saw what you saw.
Exactly. There's never anything that will take that away. Not even if you wanted to. I suppose there are ways blanking things out of your mind. I've never understood that concept much because when you see something, it's there as plain as can be. It's nature. I think that's another reason why I might see it again. Is because it's nature and seeing what was always a story coming true.
Well, it is possible you just might see it again. I do believe they operate on a large home range. Maybe it's in a different area right now, and maybe it just might come back your way and you might see it sometime. For one, I hope you don't, but that's up to you, obviously, whether you want to see one again or not, of course.
Well, if I do, it'll be a blessing. If I don't, it'll be a blessing. Can't lose either way.
That's a good way to look at it. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Vanessa. Before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
I guess the best thing that I could share with anybody is if you do come across one, whether you believe you're seeing it or not, don't build yourself up with fear. Unless it gives you a reason, don't. Because it could be the blessing of a lifetime. That's about all.
That sounds like good advice. Well, thanks again so much for coming on the show, Vanessa, and telling us about your experience. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Vic, for having me. It's nice to share an experience like that and hopefully help somebody else.
Well, I'm glad you came on and shared it. Like I said, thanks again so much for your time. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you.